Lofi Poli Sci coming at you. Michael Pickering here talking about our famous question. What's going on in the world today? And today, we're talking about global prison populations, incarceration rates around the world. And all of our data come from the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, as well as the Institute for Crime and Justice Policy Research out of the University of London. And we're talking about this because lately we've been seeing stories about prison breaks and escapees, and frankly, this is our show, so we talk about what we want to talk about. Am I right? Am I right? Yes, indeed. I always tell you, but so few of you ever say, if you got an idea, write in, and maybe we do a show on it. Maybe. Just write in, people, write in. All right, I'll start with some numbers and some stats for you, though. Get you kind of the groundwork, and then dig deeper into this conversation about global incarceration rates and prison populations around the world. And before we even start, these are estimates, and they come from between 2019 and 2021 because countries don't give up this kind of information all the time, and really, they don't have to at all. For instance, we have no data on incarceration rates of North Korea, Somalia, or Eritrea. And we know they surely got some people locked up, but we just don't know. So estimations, all right? That's very important that you remember this. But let's start with the 2019 global estimations for how many people are incarcerated globally. All right, remember that, globally. And 2019, so this is pre-pandemic, right? It's estimated that in 2019, there was about 11,760,532 people that were incarcerated around the world. That's all countries added together that we have data for in 2019, 11.7 million. And to give you perspective, that's about 0.147% of the global population of 8 billion people. So firstly, while 11.8 million people is a lot of people to be incarcerated globally. Now, incarceration rates, they're really low when you look at it globally like that. Under 1% of the global population is incarcerated. But we'll come back to that number in a little bit. Now, if we turn to incarceration rates per capita, regionally, what do we see? Now, this means we'll look at specific regions and see how many people they have incarcerated per 100,000 people that live in the area. And it's a way to take into account population, so that way we can compare region to region. All right? So what do we have? We have from highest to lowest, and the highest incarceration rates per capita out of every 100,000 people would be number 1, North America. Number 2, Latin America and the Caribbean. Number 3, Europe. 4, Oceania. 5, Asia. 6, Africa. And Antarctica, of course, there's no one incarcerated at all because penguins just know how to live, people. And just so you know, North America has more than double the next closest region. North America has about 576 persons incarcerated per 100,000. Latin America has 267 per 100,000. So a massive, massive difference in incarceration rates. And remember, this is taking population into account. North America's number 1. Now let's look at the 11.7 million number again. The number of people incarcerated globally, all countries combined, 11.7 million. What follows is the top 10 countries by number of incarceration. So the estimated number of people that are incarcerated in each country. Top 10 countries. United States, over 2 million. China, 1.6 million. Brazil, 811,000. India, 478,000. Russia, 471,000. Thailand, 309,000. Turkey, 291,000. Indonesia, 266,000. Mexico, 220,000. And number 10, Iran, 189,000. The United States and China are the only 2 countries to have over 1 million people incarcerated. And the U.S. has 2 million people. China has 1.6 million people. The U.S. makes up 17% of global incarceration rates, and China makes up 14%. Together, these 2 countries alone, China and the United States, house 31% of all incarcerated people globally. 1 in 3 people in jail around the world are either in the US or they're in China. Now, the top 10 countries combined house over 58% of the global prison population. 10 countries, 58%. Remember, there's about 200 countries in the world. What's more is if you cross-reference this list with Freedom House scores, meaning democracy and civil liberties and civil rights scores, there's only 2 on this list that are considered free democracies, the US and Brazil. The other 8 are all either partly free hybrid regimes or they're authoritarian regimes. Now, what if you take population into account again? What if you do per capita incarceration rates so countries are more comparable, and that way, countries with larger populations, you're not creating bias in your list? Sure, I got you. It's a good idea. We got you covered. That list goes like this. The United States, 629 people per 100,000. Rwanda, 580 people per 100,000. Turkmenistan, 576 people incarcerated per 100,000. El Salvador, 564. Cuba, 510. Palau, 478. British Virgin Islands, which is part of the UK territory, but I kept it in it this way anyway, 477. Thailand, 445. Panama, 423. St. Kitts and Nevis, 423 people incarcerated per 100,000 people. So, interestingly enough, when you do take population into account, our 2 top 10 lists drastically change, with all but one exception. 9 of our 10 countries change. The United States stays, and it remains number 1 on each list. The United States throws more people in jail than any country in the world. And we have more people in jail per 100,000 people than any country in the world. The question, why? A country that claims to be leader of the free world, why are you throwing so many people in jail? A country that many people in it claim to be the freest country in the world, why you have so many people not free in prison? A country that says democracy, liberty, and equality matter most, why you have more African Americans, Latinos, and other people of color in prison disproportionate to their size of the population? How did this episode go from global incarceration rates to U.S. criminal justice reform? Simple. Because looking at global incarceration rates shows us that we, the United States, hold 17% of the global prison population within our own borders. And this is just the beginning, people. The beginning of a larger conversation, my friends. Authoritarian regimes in countries around the world regularly, quite often, point to all of this as double standards that the U.S. has while engaging authoritarian regimes around the world. It's a blowback to democracy and global freedoms. It's a way for authoritarian governments that we criticize, i.e. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, Russia, China, North Korea. They can all, and they do, say, hey, U.S., stop being so messy at the mouth. Look at how many people you arrest, and notice at the color of their skin. And after saying that, authoritarian regimes go about arresting and imprisoning whomever they want, because they feel justified in comparison to, wait for it, the United States of America, the country that is supposedly the leader of the free world. And look, we rightfully criticize other countries for locking up people who we all know are wrongfully accused and imprisoned. But we have some real need to look inward and figure out a better way to live. Protecting freedom by taking away freedom. Well, there's something that doesn't sit right about that statement. Think about it. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Check us out on Instagram and LinkedIn, people. Connect to us. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's a we that we be. Talk to you tomorrow, Lofi listeners. Pickering, signing off.